You play the card. First one. जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जन रञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रज जन रञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी मुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जन रञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रज जन रञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Astottara Satashvishvimat, His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. We'll continue reading from the book I'll Build You a Temple, the Jewish Story by His Holiness Giriraj Swami, and we'll complete the first chapter, arriving on the scene, and we'll go on to the second chapter, facing difficulties, facing different challenges. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ulmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschata Dishatharini Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavinebhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada is now concluding or trying to get the final conveyance done after so many problems, and with the lawyers and with the seller of the property. So finally things were starting to come together, and there were different discussions with the different role players, and finally after much settlement and agreement, the conveyance was settled. So, we'll read a little from this section. Prabhupada later summarized the settlement. Chaganlal advanced 51,000, and when there was question of settlement, he came. He wanted that if you give me 3 lakhs, then I'll compromise. So that Mr. Ganatra, mayor, I induced him, just make a settlement. Then Chaganlal came down 2,25,000. Then I asked Mrs. Nair, how will you pay this? Where have I got it? If he takes all the money, then what shall I get? Then I had to settle with her how much she would pay. She came from 1 lakh to 1,50,000. So that was the balance. So what was the balance? 85. So I said, yes, I'll pay it. Settle up the balance. I'll pay 85,000 rand. That Chaganlal, I paid him 85, an extra 85,000. That is also black, no more white. The black money was paid in this way, that the money was counted and put into a bag, and it was locked with him. The key was with him, and the bag was with me. As soon as the court accepted the agreement, I handed over, take this bag. So we can understand what intrigue Srila Prabhupada had to encounter in finally trying to get the conveyance settled. And he was dealing, his assistants were all his young disciples, American disciples. But in this project we could see he was personally involved in everything, even handing cash, 85,000 rupees cash. And just by reading that little paragraph we could understand there was so much intrigue, and Prabhupada dealt with it in such an expert way. And finally Prabhupada, he was able to get the conveyance going finally in favor of ISKCON. So we'll continue to read a little. At Mr. Sethi's house, Prabhupada received an invitation from Yogi Raj Shanti Swarup, a life member and spiritual activist, to be the guest of honor at the opening of a series of lectures and discussions to be held at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan in Gir Gaon, Chowpatty, South Bombay, on the subject of how the Bhagavad Gita could solve the world's problems. Founded by Sri Kanhaiya Lal M. Munshi in 1938, under the patronage of Mahatma Gandhi, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan was a leading educational, cultural and intellectual institution for Indian culture. After K.M. Munshi's demise, his wife Leela Bhatti Munshi, who herself had been a prominent freedom fighter and was a politician, author and welfare worker, became president. Mrs. Munshi was eager to meet Srila Prabhupada, and she extended a personal invitation for him to join her for tea in the library of her quarters, also in the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan building, just before the conference. Mindful of her having used her influence as the governor's wife to push Prabhupada out of the premises housing his League of Devotees, a forerunner of ISKCON, when he was in Jhansi in 1955, so that she could use it for her Mahila Samiti, a women's association, Prabhupada, Shyama Sundar, Shrutikiti and I went to meet her. So Prabhupada is meeting this very influential lady, and here it's mentioned that they had a previous contact in Jhansi. In 1950, Srila Prabhupada, he retired from family life, he retired from business, and at this time he had his pharmacy in Allahabad, and he traveled on business to Jhansi, and where he met many people. And at one point, one person that he met, who was a doctor, invited Srila Prabhupada to speak, to give talks in Jhansi. And so Prabhupada, in around 1951, he went to Jhansi. And this doctor, who was a young doctor, Mr. Sastri, he arranged different programs for Prabhupada in different homes and in different temples. So Prabhupada went to speak, and Prabhupada attracted a lot of people, including the young students in that area. So Prabhupada liked it, and he felt that he could establish some preaching center in Jhansi. So Prabhupada stayed. And one day while Prabhupada was walking with his host, he saw a beautiful building which looked like a temple. And so it was this, Prabhupada inquired. It was called the Radha Memorial. And finally it was established that it wasn't in use, and there was one person who was overseeing this property for the owners, and they approached him, and Prabhupada expressed his desire to start a preaching center, a temple where he could preach Bhagavad Gita. So from around 1951 to about 1953, Prabhupada preached, and he established a good following among the young people in that area of Jhansi. And he was also planning to get legal power to occupy this property legally, and he was making different inquiries. Finally, he came close, although this property was more or less promised to him as a donation for his preaching work. But then when it came down to actually finalizing everything, then it became a sales agreement. And then Prabhupada had to go through the whole legal thing, paying deposits and things like that. And then finally, Mrs. Munshi, who was the wife of the governor, she wanted to start this women's association, Mahila Samiti. And she was very influential. And eventually she got this building to be used as the headquarters of this women's association. She felt the women of Jhansi were being neglected, and she wanted a nice building for them to use to cultivate women in that area. So unfortunately Prabhupada, again now he was left out on the street without a proper place. So he actually established the League of Devotees. He was preaching, he had followers, but he couldn't get a building. So here we find Prabhupada now is meeting that same lady, Leela Bhatti in Bombay. And Prabhupada was invited to this program in Chowpatty. And this lady, she was so surprised and astonished at how Prabhupada was able to attract so many people from the West to become devotees. Let's read a little section. When Prabhupada was seated, everyone started praising him for the wonderful work he had done for spreading Indian culture throughout the world. Mrs. Munshi, in particular, was astonished by his success. "How did you do it?" she kept asking. shaved their heads. How did you get them to wear dhotis and kurtas? And tilak? How did you get the girls to wear saris? Prabhupada explained that although there had been many editions of the Bhagavad Gita, it had not been presented as it is. And there had not been any program to train students to follow its principles. Although there were many branches and institutions of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, both within and outside India, and although they were disseminating books, there was no program for training young men and women to become followers of Vedic culture. Books were required and also training. He had given both. Mrs. Munshi brought up a point that was on many people's minds. Quite often, the founder of a mission is, when the founder of a mission is present, she said, the mission is very successful. It is flourishing and prospering. But after the founder leaves, things deteriorate. So what will be the future of your movement after you go? It's a very direct question by Mrs. Munshi to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada speaks, the future of my mission is very bright. Prabhupada replied, as long as my disciples follow my instructions, just like Gandhiji, he had so many programs, but after he left, his followers changed everything. He wanted village organization. He wanted the economy to be based on agriculture. And after he left, Nehru and others changed the whole program. They wanted to industrialize India and imitate the West. So he had this program. But after he left, his so-called followers changed everything, and everything became spoiled. So in the same way, if I leave and my followers change what I have given, what can I do? By saying this, I realized Prabhupada was challenging us, his followers, with the responsibility of remaining faithful to his instruction. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Gaur Hari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So also we read of a very nice realization by a very young devotee, His Holiness Giriraj Swami. He says, by saying this, I realized Prabhupada was challenging us, his followers, with the responsibility of remaining faithful to his instructions. So this time, now Prabhupada, he goes for the program at Chowpatty Beach, and he was asked to speak, and Prabhupada gives a talk. He gives a very nice talk, and everyone appreciates Srila Prabhupada's talk. Basically, we read every day Prabhupada's books, and it's the same basic talk that Prabhupada has given. And therefore it was appreciated because there was no compromise on the principles or teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So at the end, there's a nice little paragraph. As Prabhupada was leaving, on the way from the program, Prabhupada stood at the top of the stairs at the entrance of the building and surveyed the neighborhood. Quote, this is one of the best places in Bombay. He said, one day we should have a temple here. So this is in Chowpatty Beach. So this is another prediction by Prabhupada. There should be a nice temple in Chowpatty. 17. So we'll conclude this chapter by reading 17. After the signing of this conveyance, there was a celebration. All right, Prabhupada announced, not missing a step. Now we will begin the building fund. Your help is important. I want all of you to help whatever way you can, bodily or whatever. Mrs. Sethi was wearing some gold bangles, and she took them right off and gave them to him. This she offered is to begin. Prabhupada said that he was pleased that the fund had started with gold, which is pure, rather than paper currency. Prabhupada asked that the news be conveyed to the press, and then invited everyone out to the hall for a grand feast. The guests were seated in 2 long rows of mats and served on leaf plates. Now let us start, he proclaimed. At first he stood supervising the devotees serving the prasada. Pulao, potato, cabbage, cauliflower and eggplant, pakoras, dal, peppers, 2 or 3 sabjis, including potato, mixed vegetable and cauliflower, tomato, chutney, and the sweets, vermicelli, kheer, pudding, burfi, laddus, cham-cham and halwa. All cooked in ghee with lime juice for a drink. Then he sat with everyone and ate. The mood was happy and festive. Afterwards, there was fireworks, and then people began to filter out. So this was a great moment when the conveyance was finally signed by all the parties. Then all the guests had left. Prabhupada leaned back on his asana in his room, put his feet up, laughed and said, "It was a good fight." He was beaming. Then he added, "Someone should write a book about it." So this is could be considered like the seed verse or paragraph of this book. It was a good fight. Someone should write a book about it. So that's basically ends the first chapter, arriving on the scene, and where finally Prabhupada was able to arrange for the conveyance to be signed by all the parties. We'll go on to chapter 2, facing challenges, removing obstacles. So the property at that time in Juhu Beach, there was the apartments at the back, and also we find one of the first challenges that Prabhupada had was to deal with a person called Mr. Ratna Parki, who had a house probably in the middle of where the temple is now built. And he had an agreement with the previous owner, Mr. Nair, that Mr. Nair will buy this house, and then he would arrange accommodation for his family elsewhere in Juhu. But that never happened. So this family continued to live there. But Prabhupada wanted them to actually move or to be relocated so he could start building. So it's mentioned here that Mr. Parki, Ratna Parki, was a difficult person to deal with, and he was a bodybuilder and sometimes very aggressive, and confrontational. So he actually, when he was invited to come to meet Prabhupada, Prabhupada being the saintly person, he refused. He said, no, Prabhupada should come to him. And he lived in a shack, also like close to the Juhu property. And so eventually Prabhupada went to meet him, and he wanted Prabhupada and the devotees, especially Prabhupada, to carry a picture of his mother. His mother passed away recently, and he wanted Prabhupada to carry his mother's picture from that house to the place where he was staying in a shack. So Prabhupada arranged all the devotees, and they had a procession in this way. And then finally, he asked more for the actual house, which was about 20,000 rupees. But Mr. Ratna Parke asked for 30,000 rupees. And Prabhupada said, yeah, we'll pay you for this. And then Prabhupada commented that whatever I wanted, Krishna gave me. So Prabhupada wanted this family living in this house to be removed, and then finally that arrangement was made, and Prabhupada asked the devotees to renovate that house. And first Prabhupada said that they should clean the house up because he was coming to stay. At this time Prabhupada was living with different well-wishers in different places in Bombay. So when that house was ready, and they told Prabhupada, okay, this house is ready, you can come. Prabhupada said, no, I'll not come, but you move in. He asked the devotees to move in. So this was one of the first challenges, was to remove Mr. Ratna Parke and get his house. And now the temple is actually built where that house was. So the author, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, around this time, we read he became very sick, and Prabhupada asked him to go back to America. Prabhupada himself set the example. He did, in the early days in America in 1965, he went to New York. 66, he established ISKCON. Around 1967, Prabhupada got very sick, and it was a holiday weekend in America, around June, Memorial Day weekend. And practically it's mentioned, if there's like a holiday like this in America, everyone leaves the city. So it was difficult to get doctors. And so finally they found an old doctor who came, and they called him an old geezer. And he came and he diagnosed Prabhupada and said Prabhupada had a cold. And then he said, no, this old man is praying too much. So in this way, but Prabhupada was like sick. And so the were young devotees, they didn't know what to do. Finally, Prabhupada's situation got a little worse, and he ended up in hospital. And after a while, when he got a little better, then he went to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, he arranged the first Ratha Yatra festival. And then from San Francisco, Prabhupada decided to go back to India to fully recover his health. So he went back to Delhi and then to Vrindavan. So in this way, Prabhupada went back home to work on his health, and his health improved so much in India that when he came back, he just began to travel and expand ISKCON. So in the same way, he asked Giriraj Swami at this time to go back to Chicago, his hometown. At first, he lived with his parents, and his parents invited a family friend who was a psychologist or someone, and this lady came and she spoke to him privately, and she asked him many questions, And one of the questions that this lady asked Giriraj Swami at that time, are you happy or something with your parents, something to do about parents? And then he replied, which parents? I've been in so many different bodies. I've had so many parents. Which parents are you talking about? And after this little interview, this lady went back and she spoke to his parents and he said, there's no cure for him. And after a while, there's a nice pastime here. I began to feel uncomfortable at home, so I went to the Chicago temple in Evanston and then to Los Angeles to recuperate at the temple there. Prabhupada arrived from India soon. Prabhupada arrived from India soon thereafter, on November 30th. When he asked me about my health and my stay in Chicago, I told him how the psychologist had come to cure me. You have been infected permanently, he said. You can never be cured. This is Prabhupada's diagnosis of Giriraj Swami at that time. So thereafter, the author Giriraj Swami, he spends time in Los Angeles and he goes on morning walks with Srila Prabhupada. And then we find him returning to Bombay, and he continues with his services in Bombay. At this time also we find that at the buildings at the back, one of the residents, the families, they moved out, and the devotees prepared this apartment for Prabhupada. And we find Prabhupada for the first time, he moves in onto the Juhu Beach property and he lives with the devotees. He arrived on February 16th. We had painted his flat, which was on the second top floor, and he did the best we could to fix it up. It was quite small, less than 600 feet square, and comprised a small darshan room, a small kitchen, and even an even smaller bedroom with 2 balconies. Now, however, in Prabhupada's presence, it seemed like a huge, opulent flat. Indeed, it seemed like Vaikuntha. So this was a description of this flat that Prabhupada lived in. 231. So during this time, when the devotees moved into Mr. Ratna Parke's cottage, one morning after Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada wanted to see this cottage. When Prabhupada returned to Juhu, he wanted to see the cottage. As Jagat Purusha later remembered, quote, after deity greetings, Guru Puja and Shriman Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada got off his Vyasasan and came to the edge of the Darshan Mandapa, the temple hall, and gazed across the land towards Ratna Parke's house. I was in a position where I could see Srila Prabhupada's gaze, and I was astonished to see the look in his eyes. He seemed to be looking not just across Hare Krishna land, but across the entire world. He was incredibly grave and deep. He was awesome. Then Prabhupada said, I want to see the house. So at this time when Prabhupada went to see the house, he saw some situations that he didn't like. So we'll just read a little about that. The devotees accompanied Prabhupada from the temple into the house, which had been freshly painted inside and fixed up with electricity and other basics. Prabhupada inspected the premises. Climbing up the stairs, he shook a loose railing and told the devotees, "This has to be fixed." At the locked door to one of the rooms upstairs, he asked, "Who is staying here?" A devotee replied that it was Jagat Purusha and Gandiva's room, and Prabhupada said that he would like to look inside. Jagat Purusha opened the door and Prabhupada walked in. Everything was neat and tidy. Prabhupada looked approvingly. "I really like this room," Jagat Purush said. "It reminds me of Vrindavan, and it is very airy and bright and sunny." Prabhupada looked at Gandiva and asked her, "Are you happy?" "Yes, Srila Prabhupada," she replied. Then he asked to see another room, Aditya's. She had thought it was clean, but birds had gotten in and made a mess. Prabhupada conveyed it and asked, "Who lives here?" "Oh my, we are supposed to be clean," Aditya thought, but Prabhupada just said that the light bulb should be replaced. Next, Prabhupada approached the stairs leading to the attic, which was just rickety as the others. As he was about to climb up, Tamal Krishna said, "No, Srila Prabhupada, those stairs are too shaky. It's not safe. Please don't go up there." But Prabhupada did not heed his warning. He walked right past him and the other devotees and started up the stairs. At the top was a storage area full with Srimad Bhagavatams that had been ruined by being kept in a damp place and were infested with worms. Seeing the books, Prabhupada became livid. Quote, "How did this happen?" He demanded, "Who allowed this to happen?" He quickly descended the stairs, and as the devotees moved aside to make way for him, stormed out of the cottage. Years later, Jagat Purusha could still remember the trembling of Prabhupada's lips. The intensity of his fury was incredible. So these were the challenges, with the young devotees, especially Prabhupada's books were not taken care of properly, and he was sent by Krishna to write these books, but later on it's mentioned after Prabhupada, when he began to speak to guests, that he spoke to them in such a jovial way that no one thought that this happened early on in the day. It was such a nice, I'm certain Prabhupada must have instructed the leaders to be more careful and things like that. And we'll end, there was one when His Holiness Giriraj Swami got back to India from America. He began to work on the no objection certificate, and the police commissioner, he mentioned, for the reasons for denying the certificate, two situations. One was that the kirtan was a nuisance, and the other was the road was too small. So Prabhupada especially, he was very heavy, and when whoever he met, and even on the morning walks, he would always speak about how degraded Indians have become. The people who were responsible were thinking like this, that kirtan was nuisance. And Prabhupada was thinking, at this time, there was the Mayapur Vrindavan festival. This was the Gaur Purnima festival, February, March, and then after that festival, everyone went to Vrindavan. So Prabhupada wanted all the devotees to come to Bombay, and he was thinking of organizing a protest march. And so he was speaking with different guests, and some of them were lawyers, and they were all giving different ideas. So this was Prabhupada's plan, was to have a protest march and to create that awareness that here's a official who says that kirtan is nuisance. So Prabhupada was very upset about it. And that's the only thing that he stressed about that time, is how we should try and counteract this type of nonsense. And the other one was about the road, which was he felt was he felt it was too small. Prabhupada, he suggested that you have two entrances, one as an entrance and one as an exit. So that is still there now in Juhu Beach. So we will continue next week, and these two, I'll see how Prabhupada dealt with these challenges. Kirtan is nuisance, and the traffic, how to control the traffic. And this was in regard to the no objection certificate which they needed to start construction. Hare Krishna. Stop there. You can comment or add on. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.